Wild West of the 1800s was a land of endless struggle, where survival meant outlasting hunger, thirst, and the cruelty of men. Between vast deserts and rolling plains, Apache bands fought for life against soldiers, settlers, and the changing world that seemed determined to erase them. One cold spring evening at the edge of New Mexico territory, a lone Apache warrior staggered toward a small frontier cabin. His eyes were sunken with exhaustion, and in his arms he carried not a rifle but a small, crying infant wrapped in rags. The homestead belonged to Martha Dawson, a young widow whose husband had been lost to fever the previous year. She lived alone now, tending chickens and goats, her life simple but laced with sorrow. When she heard the knock at her door, she braced herself, expecting a trader or perhaps a drifter. But when she opened it, the sight froze her. An Apache stood there, one of the very people her neighbors whispered about with fear. But he was not armed for battle. Instead, he begged, his voice raw, "Milk. Please, for the child." Martha's first instinct was to slam the door. Memories of raids and warnings filled her mind, tales of death and fire told by settlers. But the baby's wails pierced through her fear. The warrior's face was hollow with desperation, not violence. Slowly, cautiously, she opened the door wider. "Come in," she whispered, her voice trembling. He stepped inside, lowering his head in respect. The warmth of the cabin hit them both, the infant's cries echoing off the log walls. Martha's heart clenched. Her own baby had died years ago, and she remembered the emptiness that followed. The Apache placed the baby gently into her arms. Martha looked down and saw a tiny girl no more than a few months old, her lips pale from hunger. "Her mother?" Martha asked softly. The warrior shook his head, eyes heavy with grief. "Gone," he whispered. "My wife, taken by soldiers. Only child left. No milk, no food." His voice broke like a man carrying more weight than his body could bear. He lowered his head and spoke again. "Help her. She will die." Martha's heart broke open, and the decision was made. In the firelight, Martha loosened her dress and brought the baby to her breast. Though her body had not nursed in years, something stirred. An ache, a longing, a miracle of nature answering the desperate cry. Slowly, the infant latched and drank, her small hands clutching at Martha's skin. The warrior watched, silent, tears glistening in his eyes. For the first time in months, the baby's cries softened into the rhythm of life. Martha felt something deep awaken inside her, something she thought was gone forever. The feeling of being a mother. That night, the warrior sat by the fire, speaking little, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Martha cradled the child until she slept, then laid her gently in a basket near the fire. She studied the warrior. His face bore scars, his arms' muscles worn from battle and hunger, yet his eyes held no threat, only a desperate hope. "What is her name?" Martha asked. He looked at the child, then at her. "Nadina," he said softly. "Means hope." Martha nodded, brushing the baby's dark hair with her fingers. "Hope," she repeated. "A good name." The days that followed were filled with quiet adjustments. The warrior hunted in the woods, bringing back rabbits and quail, which Martha cooked. In turn, she cared for Nadina, feeding her, wrapping her in quilts, rocking her to sleep. She sang old hymns softly, her voice trembling as memories of her lost child returned. The cabin, once silent and empty, now echoed with the sounds of new life, the crackle of fire, the gentle coos of the baby, the quiet conversations between two unlikely souls drawn together by need. Neighbors soon noticed the Apache warrior at Martha's cabin. Whispers spread through the small town. The widow had taken in one of them. Some warned her to be careful, to turn him away before trouble came. But Martha stood firm. "He brought me no harm," she told them. Only his child, starving. Yet she knew the danger of their prejudice. To many settlers, all Apache were enemies. Still, every time she held Nadina close, every time she saw the warrior's quiet gratitude, she knew she had made the right choice. The warrior, whose name was Dakota, meaning friend to all, proved himself true. He repaired Martha's fences, chopped wood, and carried water from the stream. He worked without complaint, his strength balanced by a gentle care for Nadina. At night, when Martha rocked the baby, Dakota would hum soft Apache songs, ancient melodies that seemed to bridge their worlds. In those moments, Martha saw not an enemy but a father broken by loss, clinging to the last piece of love he had left. And in him, Dakota saw not a settler, but a woman of courage and kindness. As spring turned to summer, their bond deepened. Martha found herself smiling again, laughter returning to her lips when Nadina giggled. Dakota, once stoic and silent, began to speak more of his people, of the mountains where he was born, of the rivers where his tribe once gathered. He spoke of hardship, of battles fought to keep their land, of families scattered by soldiers' raids. Martha listened, her heart heavy with a guilt she did not fully understand. Yet in those talks they found healing, two voices from two worlds, joined by the fragile life they now protected. One evening, under a sky painted with sunset, Martha rocked Nadina on the porch while Dakota sat nearby, carving wood into a small toy. "When I came that night," he said quietly, "I thought only to save her life. I did not know you would save mine as well." Martha's eyes met his, her heart fluttering with emotions she dared not name. She looked down at the baby in her arms, sleeping peacefully. "You gave me back what I lost," she whispered. "A child to love, a reason to wake each day." By autumn, the three of them were no longer strangers bound by desperation. They had become something else, a family born from sorrow but strengthened by love. Martha and Dakota worked the land side by side, tending crops and livestock, raising Nadina together. The neighbors still whispered, some with scorn, others with quiet wonder, but Martha no longer cared. She had found her purpose again, and Dakota had found a home. They were not bound by blood nor by law, but by a promise stronger than either, the promise to keep Nadina alive and loved. The Wild West was still harsh, filled with dangers both seen and unseen. Yet in their cabin there was warmth, laughter, and the gentle rhythm of a child's growing years. Nadina's first steps were taken on the wooden floor of Martha's cabin. Her first words mixed English and Apache, a blend of two worlds joined in her small voice. Every milestone was shared, every challenge met together. Martha, who thought her days of motherhood were gone, and Dakota, who thought his family lost forever, discovered that life had given them a second chance. In the years that followed, the little family endured storms, droughts, and the ever-present shadow of prejudice, but they endured. Martha became more than a widow, she became a mother again. Dakota became more than a warrior. He became a father, a protector, and a man who found peace in unlikely soil. And Nadina, the child who had nearly starved, grew into a symbol of hope, her life proof that love could bloom even in the harshest frontier. Thus, the story of the Apache warrior and the frontier widow became a quiet legend, whispered across the plains. A tale of desperation turned to devotion, of enemies turned to family. In a world where survival often meant cruelty, they chose compassion. And in doing so, they created something rare and beautiful, the kind of bond that even the unforgiving Wild West could not break. Their love was not born of chance, but of a child's cry for milk that was answered with a mother's heart.